And covering for this president is like putting makeup on a melanoma. Not only unsightly, but it's dangerous. I'd see that everybody's a hypocrite because everybody's imagined themselves standing there with his head. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe at least half the country.
I really do. I hate them. I cannot stand them. With all of the things we did with the tax cuts and rebuilding our military, not one Democrat voted for us, and I think
nobody
we
saw Jim Carrey just storm onto television and tear into
midterm.
Donald Trump like someone trying to exorcise a cursed casino with pure chaos, but somehow that's exactly what happened. What started as just a bit of comedy quickly turned into something that felt like a full-on psychological meltdown, with facial expressions so extreme they almost seemed illegal. The really unsettling thing was that the more Carrey joked, the more it all sounded true. By the end, Trump didn't feel like a former president anymore, he looked more like a motivational speaker stuck in a reality show falling apart live on air. And somehow, against all reason, it just kept spiraling from there.
But it's a very, very divided world, and those on I guess you'd call it the left side. I just call it the sensible side. We're sitting there watching this nonsense happen, and people come out and talk about it like we're.
Once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy, or to make them stand, or smile, or applaud.
Before
nothing
we go
I
any
can do.
further,
I could
make
find
sure you
a
hit
cure
that like
to
button
the
and
most.
subscribe, because you do not want to miss what's coming next. Every president eventually becomes fair game for jokes and satire. But with Trump it got weird. Suddenly comedians weren't exaggerating anymore. They started sounding more like tired documentary narrators, just trying to explain how a circus elephant somehow ended up running the whole government.
Administration is a rabid dog, and it's turning us upside down. And all as far as I'm concerned, it's as obvious as the nose on your face. But people have made these elections and politics in general who they are, and it's not who you are. You can make a bad decision about a candidate. It's not who you are. It doesn't mean.
And nobody
you're dumb.
seemed to get
It
that
doesn't mean
chaotic
you're
energy
different.
better
I
than
can
Jim
break bread
Carrey,
with
who just looked at Trump and somehow turned political satire into this weird mix of stand-up comedy, psychological observation, and the kind of fever dream you have after eating questionable fast food at 2 a.m. Carrey never treated Trump like a regular political figure. He approached him like he was untangling a live wire of pure chaos.
Love to draw cartoons, and I thought, oh,
Me too.
you played a cartoonist.
This whole thing has brought back my 8-year-old self. It's been a gift from God. It's like literally like brought me back to 8 years old, where I used to sit in my room. Trump is toast.
I like that one.
Trump is toast. Yeah, man.
And so you just kind of digest the news of the
it's
day.
It's an affirmation.
I'm glad some good is coming out
He
of
didn't
this
treat
stuff.
him like
This
a
is,
politician at
Robert
all.
Mueller.
Carrey
Robert Mueller
approached
putting
Trump
this-
more like some bizarre cultural phenomenon that had escaped from reality TV and somehow wandered straight into the White House while everyone else was too busy arguing online. And that's exactly why his satire hit so hard.
We are parentless. And we are babysat by the television. We're taught how to think by the television. That's the dangerous thing about what's going on right now. There are generations growing up right now who are learning to lie. That lying is okay. That this
Kids say fake news.
That you're supposed to hate half the country. You know? And if anything,
Carrey wasn't just joking about Trump's policies or speeches. He was dissecting the entire performance of the man himself. This non-stop spectacle who seemed convinced that shouting louder automatically made him smarter and that repeating nonsense enough times could turn it into truth. At one point, Trump decided to reignite his ancient feud with Rosie O'Donnell by threatening to revoke her citizenship, which sounded way less like a presidential statement and way more like a retired wrestling promoter discovering social media for the first time. The absurdity was instant comedy, because even people who barely followed politics could see how ridiculous it all looked. Here was the President of the United States obsessing over a celebrity feud that should have ended in 2006, while the country watched like passengers stuck on a delayed flight with a screaming toddler nearby. Carrey got that Trump's biggest weakness wasn't just incompetence, it was insecurity dressed up as performance art. Every insult, every public meltdown, every bizarre online rant felt less like leadership and more like someone desperately refreshing the internet to see if strangers still approved of him. Carrey pushed that insecurity so far it became impossible not to laugh at it, portraying Trump as completely addicted to applause, even when the applause existed only in his own imagination. That's where the genius of Carrey's comedy came in. He never tried to make Trump look unreal. If anything, he made him painfully real by stretching the traits already there to their absolute extremes. Trump turned into this giant orange cartoon, stumbling through democracy like a casino magician who somehow won an election and now had to pretend he knew how government worked. The satire cut even deeper because Carrey connected Trump to something bigger than politics. He presented him as the ultimate symbol of modern excess.
I love people in this country. I love the heartland of this country. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with, it's become obvious that the choice was a bad one. We just need to change it. And if you can't vote for a Democrat, at least let all this flood of information.
A culture built entirely on ego, branding,
so
noise,
obvious.
and spectacle had finally produced its final boss. Trump wasn't just a politician anymore. He looked like capitalism itself, striding around in a red tie and yelling at strangers on TV. Carrey often referenced how older comedians like Charlie Chaplin used humor to expose dangerous absurdities hiding behind powerful figures, turning dictators into clowns because ridicule destroys fear faster than any speech ever could. And with Trump, Carrey seemed to get that perfectly. Once people stop seeing a leader as intimidating and start seeing him as ridiculous, the whole illusion starts collapsing like a cheap casino chandelier crashing to the floor. The scary part was how naturally Trump turned politics into entertainment. Every crisis became a ratings grab, every scandal another episode, every speech sounding like someone pitching a TV reboot nobody asked for. Carrey leaned right into that chaos, portraying Trump less as a president and more like a malfunctioning game show host who somehow stumbled upon nuclear launch codes hidden in his dressing room. The imagery was impossible not to picture. Trump at rallies like a motivational speaker trapped in a Facebook comment section, treating government officials like contestants who could be eliminated after a bad audience reaction.
Just to relieve the stress, you know what I mean? It's a stress reliever.
And here we have...
That's Space Force.
That's the Space Force, yeah.
That's the beginning of Space Force. That's right. Makes me feel good.
When you were a kid, would you draw caricatures of your friends, etc.?
I did. I drew pictures of my teacher.
Oh, really?
And I don't have any of those with me. She actually stole... Wow, look at this. I can do anything with it.
Trump acted like the Constitution was just a rough draft he could rewrite anytime his feelings got hurt. And somehow, the more absurd reality became, the more on-point Carrey's jokes sounded. One of the sharpest angles Carrey went after was Trump's weird relationship with the truth. Facts seemed to melt around him like ice in boiling soup. Anything that embarrassed him instantly became fake, and anything that praised him suddenly turned into history. It created this bizarre alternate universe where failure could magically be called victory just by repeating it enough times. Carrey nailed this by comparing Trump to a kid coloring over a bad report card with crayons. With Trump, the absurdity was already built in. Carrey described his presidency as a giant hall of mirrors where every reflection screamed genius, no matter how warped the image got, and the comparison stuck because it perfectly captured the whole vibe around him. Loyalty mattered more than competence, praise mattered more than results, optics mattered more than reality. It was a government run entirely like a branding strategy, and the branding never stopped.
And because you voted Republican, you're not stupid, you're not different, you're not worthless. You know, I could break bread with anybody who voted for Trump. We could find some common ground to love each other through, you know? So, just stop doing stupid shit!
Yeah.
That's all we expect.
All right, so
Just get it together.
So let's plug your show.
Yes.
Why this character?
Every controversy turned into another chance for Trump to dominate the headlines, and even serious national issues somehow became just extensions of his personal storyline. Carrey roasted this obsession relentlessly, showing Trump as someone who couldn't survive without constant attention, like a reality TV star whose oxygen supply depended entirely on cable news coverage. At times, Carrey's humor almost felt psychological. Rosie O'Donnell became the perfect example. Every time political pressure started building, Trump somehow circled back to the same old celebrity feuds, like a man trapped in a tabloid time machine. Carrey tore this behavior apart by portraying Trump as a circus ringmaster desperately trying to convince everyone that the collapsing tent was all part of the show. While the lions were escaping, the clowns were panicking, and somehow the popcorn machine was already on fire in the background. The humor hit so hard because the metaphor was disturbingly close to reality, and even Trump's attempts to project toughness quickly turned into comedy gold.
Hatred of immigrants, contempt for the truth, greed, and the abuse of power. We are fighting those same evils today.
in America, in the United Kingdom, across the globe. And we need to be clear, shamelessness is not and will never be a superpower.
Carrey mocked the way Trump tried to present himself as this unstoppable strongman while constantly losing it over criticism online at all hours of the night. It's hard to look like a fearless leader when random comedians and cable news hosts can personally wound you. Carrey compared it to watching someone claim they're a legendary warrior while simultaneously arguing with teenagers in a YouTube comment section. Giant logos, non-stop self-promotion, it all became part of the image, probably leaving historians trying not to laugh during future educational tours. And honestly, it's not hard to imagine that museum actually existing someday. Carrey also got something deeper about satire. Ridicule only really works when it exposes fragility. Trump spent years projecting dominance, certainty, and strength, but Carrey kept shining a light on the insecurity lurking beneath all the noise. That non-stop bragging slowly stopped sounding like confidence and started sounding like pure desperation.
Always happy, that's for sure. Happy as the weather. And but I do live in a sunny place.
Right.
Yeah, I just have enough,
but that is the mark
rain
of a seeker.
to let the flowers grow. But,
you know, because it's hard to find what you're looking for, especially when it's deep.
Yeah, and basically I've learned how to, and I am as angry and caught up in this stuff as anybody. I'm outraged. It's like a carpet bombing of outrage that's happening.
I see it in your art.
Absolutely.
You know, I first saw you. I didn't
That's
realize
exactly
until
why
I saw you
Carrey's
on Jerry
comedy rubbed Trump
Seinfeld's
supporters
coffee
the
show.
wrong way. His jokes weren't just insults, they went after the mythology itself. Once you stop seeing Trump as this fearless titan and start seeing him as a deeply insecure performer obsessed with validation, the whole image changes instantly. Suddenly, all that shouting feels less commanding and a lot more defensive. Sometimes he looked like a game show host treating national crises like weekly elimination rounds, other times like a guy trying to steer democracy the same way someone aggressively drives a golf cart after losing an argument at a country club. The humor worked so well because it was tied to real, recognizable truths about how Trump actually behaved. Even scandals and controversies became perfect fuel for Carrey's surreal, over-the-top satire, because Trump always tried to redirect attention through spectacle, drama, or public outrage.
Mark of a villain. Kidnapping children is not what great nations do. Almost half of America at this moment believes there is a sinister deep state diabolically plotting to what? Give them health care? What is the sinister plan here?
Carrey portrayed Trump's whole strategy like a
for
magician, desperately throwing glitter in the air every time the audience started noticing his tricks falling apart. Every distraction spawned another distraction, every scandal generated a new headline, and politics stopped feeling like governance and started looking like a chaotic improv show where nobody knew the script, yet somehow everyone was still expected to clap at the end. Carrey's satire hit so hard because he never made Trump out to be some master strategist. That was the real twist. Critics often framed Trump as a calculating genius, quietly manipulating the system, but Carrey flipped that completely. His Trump was reckless, impulsive, insecure, and totally addicted to attention, a man stumbling through huge consequences while insisting everything was going perfectly. Somehow, that version often felt far more believable. The comedy also captured the public's exhaustion. By then, Americans were just worn out from the non-stop spectacle. Every day felt like another bizarre episode nobody asked for. Carrey nailed that feeling perfectly, treating Trump's presidency like a TV series that should have ended seasons ago but somehow kept getting renewed because the producers loved controversy too much.
Now I see it all the time on social media because can we show you a few of these?
Sure, I'd love
Okay, show the there's I love this one of Trump.
Yeah.
It's real.
Now, a lot of people don't know that that's Ryan and Nunez are the flying monkeys.
Okay.
Perhaps I wasn't detailed enough to.
And then Lincoln is in there.
He was my
Lincoln crying.
Yeah, Lincoln symbolizes.
I love that because Trump is always
a president that actually, had
even Trump's
the
language
worst tribulations
became part
our
of the
country's
joke.
ever
The
faced.
over-the-top phrases, the bizarre nicknames, the endless self-praise, they all turned into comedy gold. Carrey took those speech patterns and turned them into verbal cartoons, showing just how repetitive and performative they sounded. Listening to Trump sometimes felt like watching someone improvise motivational slogans during a concussion test. But beneath all the laughs, there was always a serious point in Carrey's satire. That's what set it apart from random internet jokes. He understood that ridicule mattered because no one in power should be immune to criticism. Satire forces people to see the absurdity clearly, instead of just slowly accepting it through repetition. And Trump created so much absurdity that comedians practically needed industrial equipment just to keep up. Carrey often framed the whole Trump phenomenon as a warning about celebrity culture colliding with politics. For decades, America rewarded spectacle, branding, outrage, and attention-seeking, and eventually that culture gave us a political figure made entirely from those ingredients. Trump became the living embodiment of a society obsessed with image over substance.
No, I used to be a guy who was experiencing the world, and now I feel like the world and the universe experiencing a guy.
I think we got a little taste of that just a moment ago, yeah. And does the beard have anything to do with that?
Well, here's the thing, the beard, yes. Everywhere I go, people talk about the beard. They go, what are you doing? Why are you growing a beard? Why are you growing a beard? It's like they can't really think about anything else.
That's why Carrey's roast felt so much bigger than your typical celebrity takedown. He wasn't just going after Trump as a person, he was attacking the whole cultural machine that turned TV fame into political power. Trump stopped looking like an accident and started looking like the inevitable result of decades spent turning entertainment into national identity. And Carrey never let the audience forget just how bizarre that was. By the end of these roasts, Trump no longer seemed like the unstoppable political titan his supporters imagined. Through Carrey's lens, he looked like a deeply insecure performer, desperately trying to keep control over a collapsing stage while pretending the falling scenery was intentional. Carrey peeled away the performance layer by layer until all that was left was ego, insecurity, spectacle, and chaos, all wrapped up in an orange cloud of branding and noise. And once that illusion cracked, it was almost impossible to put back together, because after seeing Trump through Carrey's surreal comedic lens, the image of a towering strongman starts to look less like reality and more like a man screaming the word genius into a funhouse mirror while the entire room slowly backs away in confusion.
In America are misinformed. Reality shows have warped our idea of what a hero is, or what the truth is. So tonight, I'd like to dedicate this award to those who remind us of our virtues, who remind us of the truth, to Sir Charles Chaplin, who battled McCarthyism into exile, to Christopher Steele, who tried to pull a thorn out of the paw of an ungrateful beast.
The most brutal part of Carrey's satire was that it refused to let Trump control the narrative, something that had always been his greatest survival skill. For decades, Trump dominated attention simply by being louder, flashier, and more relentless than everyone else. Most critics went after him directly, but Carrey took a different approach. Every angry tweet, every grievance-filled rally, every dramatic outburst started looking less like presidential behavior and more like a casino owner yelling at slot machines for not loving him enough. And that transformation mattered, because satire changes the way we remember things. Long after speeches fade and headlines vanish, people remember the joke. Carrey got that perfectly. He knew ridicule could outlast propaganda, especially when the propaganda already sounded like accidental comedy on its own.